I'm Craig Madsen with Hooves, and I manage a herd about 200 head of goats. I'm doing projects across mainly Washington and a few into Oregon, but focus mainly on working in Washington doing vegetation management work. Well, goats kind of have some unique abilities. They are very agile, and they don't mind steep slopes, and especially on here in the Highlands. One of the things that the pretty steep slopes that we work on, and the grass is really slick. Well, they have four legs to work to keep balance, whereas I know I have a hard time sometimes sliding down the hill on the slopes. So steep slopes they do well on. They like to climb. And they eat a lot of different weeds that the other livestock don't eat. You know, some of the broadleaf weeds, and thorns don't deter them. So I use them a lot on like blackberries and things like that, where you have thorny vegetation. So they work well on those situations. So they have and then they're bipedal. They can get up on their hind legs, so they can reach vegetation. So which can be an advantage or a disadvantage depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And they will take bark off trees. So that's going to be either a positive or negative things depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So they have different skills that you can use for vegetation management, and what kind of impact they have is depending on how you manage them. Goats are more of a desert animal. They're really from the Boer goats, what I have, they're actually originated from South Africa. So these are more of a desert animal. So the heat is not a big of an issue that would be, you think, for some animals. Sometimes when it's sunny, if it's hot, they'll be actually laying, there might be shade out there, but they'll actually be laying out in the sun. So it just depends on how hot it gets. And then as long as they have plenty of water, that's usually the key to that situation, managing that is the water, making sure they got lots of water. These are more of a meat breed, the goats I have, just because they're not, don't want to use dairy breeds in this situation, most situations, but they're able to eat a variety of vegetation. They're able to eat some plants that are maybe are poisonous or negative impact to other livestock. Around here it's like tansy ragwort, you'll see that around here occasionally. They can eat that, not large quantities, but they can eat that without having a negative impact. Whether other livestock eat that, and it causes a problem. Over in our area we'll get leafy spurge, which is another plant that can cause problem for cattle. So that goats can eat that, and actually it's highly nutritious for them. So that's a benefit that they have over, as far as doing vegetation. And in some areas where if they're mowing, actually the weeds will go to seed below the level that the mower can cut, whereas that doesn't, you can't do that with goats. So they can eat the vegetation and prevent it from going to seed. That can be a challenge, but managing their timing and how often you do it, you can manage that kind of a situation. Yeah, it's changed quite a bit. Yeah, you say that because when I first got here, there was no Safeway, there was no movie theater and all those kind of things. So it is kind of nice to have that store close by, in that sense. But then there's a lot. Of course, the building has been steady over the years. It was interesting to be here when the 2007, 2008 kind of slowdown hit. You could tell it really impacted the real estate market for a period of time here, because people walked away from some of those homes that they were building, and that was kind of an interesting thing, I'm sure, for the people here. But yeah, it's interesting that they say the development for the retail development has been, like say, nice as far as being able to build easy access, not instead of having to go down to the lower part of the Issaquah to do that. Well, there's a couple things. Some of the urban sites, and this is one of some of the access is a good challenge, and so that can be an issue. Also, Lyle and his crew has been a real big help as far as those access points who are difficult to get into. They help a lot as far as helping unload and load the goats. They help a lot in that situation, so that it makes it easier. I couldn't really do some of these sites by myself, so they make that easier to do. And they also, crew comes in and trims the edge of these areas, so it makes it a lot easier for me to put up the fence. So that the extra work from his crew makes it a lot easier to do my part as far as doing putting up fencing and getting in and out of locations. So that has been really appreciated, the help from the crew, and everybody's always been real nice to work with and helpful. And we talk about the Great Escape. There was people help with that situation to get them back, goats back, rounded up back again. So
do you guys need
that was
help?
very helpful. To people are willing to help out if there need to be. So that's been wonderful. Well, the primary with any urban site is people, is managing people. That's going to be some of the biggest challenges, because people, I mean, they want to look at the goats, they want to feed the goats, they want to pet the goats, and then of course there's electric fence, and then you add people's dogs to that situation, and that creates issues. So trying to manage people and aware that, okay, don't feed the goats because there are a lot of poisonous plants especially in the landscape. So that could be a serious issue if they feed them, because over the years I've lost goats here from people feeding them stuff, throwing things over the fence. Oh, feed the goats. Well, it doesn't usually ends up bad if you're not careful. So that's going to be, and then people with their dogs and interacting with the fence. And then there's a yard dog in there, so that can be an issue as well, because the yard dog's here to protect the goats from predators, and it just sees a dog and it thinks, okay, that's a potential predator. So it always challenges another dog, and then also people keeping the dog away from the fence, and young kids. It always worry me when they have see kids walking, 3 or 4 years old that are getting awful close to the fence and they don't know what it is, and it's like, it's always worried me about, don't let the kid touch the fence. So those kind of issues of trying to manage that. And then the goats have a mind of their own, so if there's an opportunity where the fence get knocked or something, a deer or something happens, and they're a little low on feed, they can go through that fence. And that's happened a couple times. Sometimes it's been in the evening where people messed with fireworks. I've had that for a couple of years, and then somebody actually took down the fence and fought off fireworks. That was one year they did that. So that can be, people being mischievous is always a challenge in urban sites where people think, oh, I'll have fun and let the goats out, and that could be dangerous for the goats because they could get into the wrong stuff and could kill them, and then they also damage from landscaping and stuff like that. So they do, like I said, goats have a mind of their own. So it is a challenge, and sometimes the fence is electric, and it does usually, most of the time it does a really good job of keeping them where they're supposed to, but if something gets knocked, fence gets knocked, or somebody happens, then that fence could come down, and whether it be fireworks or somebody else, or just somebody else, when that goat gets knocked into, or deer hits it or something like that, if it take down the fence, then they take advantage of that opportunity. So it can be a challenge in itself. So. And if you're out in the country, that's not a big deal. But here, when you got a lot of landscaping and different things going on in people's houses, and it can be an issue. Most of the other times it was at dark, because that's when people come in and mess with the fence. That time was in the daytime. It was actually probably easier, because I could actually see what was going on. So they knocked the fence and went down the road, and we caught them down at Santi rounded them up and put them in the dog park. So that's kind of what we did with them that time. And then we went down with the trailer and picked them up. But they weren't out that long. They just kind of went for a little run, and they hit that power line section down there. And that's nice stuff to eat. So that's kind of where they hung out down there. And I just ran them up that way and brought them up into the dog park and collected them, and then put them back, and then brought them back up to the pen. They were getting low on feed, and I was going to move them probably that next morning, but they decided that it was time to move a little earlier than I should have went with my gut feeling and moved them that day, and that would have been fine. But I just one of those, I'll wait till morning and move them. But because I needed help to move them across the road, and so I'll just wait till morning. But they decided they wanted to move a little earlier. So.